For this presentation, I will be discussing political parties in the United States and how they have become too radical and gained too much power over the years. To begin, when our founding fathers created the current political system in the United States centuries ago, many of them worried that polarization would occur between parties as they would compete for power in the U.S. government. As time has gone on, this indeed has been the case, as in all branches of the government, as well as through the citizens of the United States, there seems to be more extreme views and less cooperation between the Democratic and Republican parties. In the United States, there is no problem with the people or with one political party or another, but there's instead a problem with the political system in America and what it has turned to since our founding fathers originally created it. In today's system, independent thought and political compromise remain the two biggest issues. In our country, people do not vote for political candidates for their views, but instead by how well they will represent their party and get it more power. What we do not have that we used to is bipartisanship, or even people supporting their own views. People care so much about getting their party power to beat the rival parties, when they should instead be forming their ideas around their morals and coming together to solve issues. Many issues in this country will not get solved because people are unwilling to come together and rationally make a plan for it. Rather, they go to the extreme to make their party more defined than the other parties. The cause of this is that parties hold so much power and force people to follow their extreme beliefs in order to come together for a candidate. For example, I am from Jacksonville, Florida, which is known to be an extremely conservative city and an already conservative state. When I would talk to people earlier in the presidential primary elections, many of them would say they supported John Kasich's views over anyone, but won't vote for him because he won't represent the extreme views of the Republican Party enough to maintain the party's power. Instead, they would rather vote for Donald Trump, not because of his political views, but instead because of the fact that they felt he would do whatever he can to maintain the Republican Party's power in the White House and Congress. When this system was first created, many of the creators were scared of this, not just with voters, but also with elected politicians. As one can see in the first chart on their outline, congressmen have continued to give a higher percentage of their votes towards their own party compared to the past. As quoted in one of the videos, right now, corruption is completely illegal in the United States due to the lack of laws created over time to prevent them. What this video is talking about are things such as lobbyists being able to send huge checks to members of Congress for them to pass laws to then help out the lobbyists and gain them more power. The second chart on your outline shows how separated voting in the Senate has become over the years. From the chart, it is very clear that over these 25 years, voting in the Senate has changed immensely by becoming much more polar between parties. In the 1989 voting, there's a large amount of purple and very dense in the middle, while it almost looked white in the bottom 2013 voting. The solution to all this is to alter the American system so that parties hold less power in all legislative, executive, and judicial elections. Parties should be dimmed down in order for people to not be defined with views and ideas, but instead able to make their decisions based on their experiences and morals. As I said, I am from a very conservative area, but as of now, I try to stay independent until I have done enough research on both parties' views to collect my own ideas to join with. Parties should not be one size fits all, and it was not like this when our founding fathers first created this system. The United States, just as every other country, needs moderates and radicals with all sorts of political views. We have that, and that is important to get variety and to create argument to find the right solution. What we do not have, that we used to, is bipartisanship, or even people supporting their own views. People care so much about getting their party power to beat the rival parties when they should be forming their ideas around their morals and coming together to solve issues. In order to get congressmen to start thinking independently, we would need to bring an end to exterior pressure and incentive. The government needs to pass a law to stop lobbyists from being able to intervene into the opinions of congressmen in order to empower themselves. Another way to start eliminating the ability of parties to control voters' beliefs through the presidential election would be to eliminate the ability for parties to decide which candidates will represent their party in the general election. The reason for this is that parties have continued to nominate more and more radical candidates in the primary elections, leading to more polarization of parties in the general presidential election and more voters to vote for their party because of this. When looking outside the presidential election, gerrymandering is a way that parties change political districts for voters in strange ways to make sure that they have a better chance of winning different districts. If nonpartisans were to create these districts and update them, parties should have less ability to cheat and fight for more power. Lastly, the government needs to enforce policies in order to make the House and Senate more bipartisan. This could be done by having leaders such as the Speaker of the House being approved by a certain number of representatives from each party so they are fair and less radical. This would allow for more efficiency and reconciliation between the houses. To conclude, polarization of parties and lack of independent thought are really hurting this country by causing it to be inefficient politically. Change needs to occur in order for this trend of polarized parties to come to an end. This can start with new laws allowing politicians as well as citizens to feel less opinionated by exterior pressure and incentive to side with a certain side on political views. The solution to obvious issues will then solve themselves if we fix the system itself, so that people are giving their honest opinion on issues instead of what the party wants them to say. This will make the country a lot more efficient as a whole, and will make for a lot better United States of America.